Hey everybody, John here, Midnight Paint and Body channel. On this video, we're back to work on the 52 Chevrolet sedan delivery. So that's right, so you guys haven't seen this one for a while. I stopped recording on it because, well, it's hard to make videos out of kind of boring stuff, like tons and tons and tons of body work that I have done on the body. As you can see, it has primer on it since the last time anyone saw it. So basically I have roughed in, for the most part, all of the body work on the body itself, and then I've got a few coats of primer on it. So now obviously, you know, there's things like our doors are still welded shut. There's still going to be a lot of work to do once this comes off the rotisserie, but I've got a ton of this stuff done. I have got most of the underside done, rebuilt all the braces and everything. There are still some things on the floor need to be done, but there's a lot I can't do until we get our chassis back for this. So it is going to be getting wheel tubs because it's getting 18-inch wide rear tires. So yeah, obviously this isn't going to sit down over top of those huge tires. We're going to have to be putting wheel tubs probably into about there because they're going to be big. So yesterday, now this is why I just decided to start filming on this again, because I have been making some progress. Yesterday I rebuilt the inside of our rear door. You know, it looks not bad, but once I kind of got into it, sandblasted it, it kind of had to all be replaced. So I've done all that. And then today, so far, I've dug out our passenger side fender and I stripped it. And then I just took it outside and gave it a quick sandblast. It will need to be blasted again, I think, once I've got any metal work done on it. But it's minus 25 right now, so. And actually, oddly, standing out there in the sun, sandblasting, even at minus 25, it wasn't that bad. But there's no wind, and the sun is shining, so that's good. So where I'm at now, I'm just going to continue cleaning up this fender a little bit. Now I did have it kind of roughed into place here on the body, and I'm going to have to trim my rocker panel back a little bit because I didn't quite have the right shape. Now I kind of expected I was going to have to do some fitting in there, but I actually didn't think I would be doing it until I got the chassis back. I got this on the chassis where I could bolt fenders on, but I found I can actually bolt it well enough here at the body and then just prop up the front and I can get the shape. So I'm going to do a little cut and weld here, and then we'll move back to the fender. Kind of a reasonable gap, enough to kind of get a visual. So it is hard to do this kind of stuff without it actually bolted in place to get a final fit, but I think we can start reconstructing the bottom of this fender. I did buy some panels. Now, I don't know if you remember, if you happen to watch when I started on this car. So this is a 52 sedan delivery. A lot of the parts I got were for a sedan, so not quite right for this car, but it was better than nothing. But it turns out the fender patches are not going to work at all. But it's not too big a deal. I think I'm just going to make a whole new bottom for this fender. And it is not very complex, so. So when I cut this out into a piece of sheet metal, I'll make that probably 3/4 of an inch longer, but I know this is where my brake will be, because I'm going to need to fold a piece over on the bottom. But I think this front, because it's got this nice rounded lip, it's going to be tough for me to make that. So I think I might actually cut this fender. Something like that, and then graft my piece in, but save that lip so that I don't have to try and recreate it. And if you're new to the channel, guys, just remember, I just share what I do here. I am by no means a master fabricator. I'm just a body man. I can do some fairly basic sheet metal shaping and making, but I'm by no means the master at it. So, it's my disclaimer. Alright, I'm gonna go cut out a piece of sheet metal. So, here's the start of our panel. So I cut out a piece of sheet metal, put it in the brake, put the brake on the bottom, and then I kind of used the brake just to roll this a little bit. I know this looks a little chunky, but we can smooth that out as we weld it in. But looks like I actually got the shape really good on the first shot, so that should be fine. So I think what I might actually do is clamp this right to the fender, and we'll just start trimming around it. Spot weld there. Look at that, that's going to work out well. So I'm going to clean up this inner brace, get some primer on it. I think we can pretty much start tacking that piece in. All right, well, I'm gonna take a break. I think it's lunchtime. I'm gonna come back, we'll just pop this fender back off and finish welding her up. So here's our fender patch all welded in and ground down. So that turned out pretty nice. Happy with that. And so there's how the inside looks. So it's nice when you can butt weld like that, so everything's just kind of nice and flush. So nice and clean inside, and of course when they're this open you can finish it really nice and make sure it's all treated nicely inside. So that is that part out of the way. So I think I'm gonna move on to this part. So as you can see, we're rusted through just a little on top, and then of course this inner flange. I think there was another spot. Glasses back on. Maybe that was it. So yeah, we're gonna have to cut that out, make a piece for there. Yeah, we're rusted through here as well. So it's kind of a funky little spot there, but shouldn't be too bad. So I'm gonna get set up and we'll just start making another little patch for that mounting flange. So I've whipped up a little piece for that flange to replace that rusted area. I've put our bolt holes back in there. So pretty straightforward. That guy is going to weld right in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and get that burnt in, and then we'll see what's next. Alright, so there's our other piece welded in. So I think let's try fitting this back to the car and just make sure everything's still where it needs to be. Maybe I'll tackle those front rust holes with it bolted on. Well, I think I'm going to switch gears here for a little bit. I still have to make some intricate little pieces up in here around the front of this fender. But I don't feel like doing that right now. Getting close to the end of the day. So I thought I might just strip down this fender. So you can see this one's missing a little bit. Now this is the fender off of the car. But the owner told me that at some point over the last bunch of years when it was sitting on the farm, someone backed into it, I think with a piece of equipment. And this fender is pooched. So you can see it's completely flattened. You can see the way it's supposed to roll over. I don't think you'd ever get the shape back into that thing. So unfortunately, because it wasn't in bad shape, kind of like that one. I mean, not great, but not bad. Where this one, I have to rebuild the bottom like that one, which is not a big deal, but it's also rusted through here. And around the headlight, I'm assuming where someone's gobbed some old Bondo on there that probably rusted through there too, so that's going to be some pretty tricky pieces, unless, because this fender is junk anyway, if it's decent enough we might be able to actually cut out some pieces from this fender to use in that one. Just look at her bottom, the inside, but you see this one's actually rotten exactly the same as that one was, right at this mount for whatever reason. Other than that, we're tweaked a little bit. But yeah, this one, it's not great, but it's what we have. Well, I got the other fender kind of stripped, still needs to be sandblasted. Got it kind of hung in place. So this one is pretty darn rough, unfortunately. And so this is where you start being able to see things. Now, I did put a door bottom on this door, and you can see where I've marked it there. I've got a little jog in that front line. So I'm gonna have to strip the front of this out and build that up with some weld and get that so we have a nice fit But this fender does actually fit. It fits kind of weird. It goes really tight up here, so... Well, actually it feels like there might just be some filler overhanging on that door. So that might just need to be sanded back. Actually, now that I stick my finger in there, I don't think that's a concern. So if I get that cleaned out, I can slide this fender back just a hair to tighten that gap up. And of course I did rockers and everything, which I basically made while the fenders were off. So you see we're kind of sticking out here. I had to grind it back a little bit for the gap. But again here, because I don't want to lose that shape of the fender, I mean I'm going to be putting a fender bottom on this anyway, and this is bent in somewhat. But I think we'll just need to take this down a little bit. There is some filler in the end of this rocker here, so I should be able to just tap that all in to where we're going to have a nice line. Now these had a big molding originally that went along the whole bottom of the car. I don't know if we're going to be using anything like that in the end, but cross that bridge when we get to it. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it for today. And in the morning, I think we'll just start doing this side like we did the other side. I've still got my template I made for the fender bottom. Well, it's the next day here, guys. I've been trucking along a little bit. So first thing this morning, I put in a bunch of little pieces here and here and here on the front of this fender. Boring stuff. And then I moved on to our driver's side fender, and I did replace the bottom just like we did on this side. So that's out of the way. That one turned out pretty nice as well. So I think what we're going to move on to now on this one is this little issue here. So what I'm thinking we're going to do is take a piece out of this fender. Now, this one is also bad in that area, not as bad, but it appears to be solid over here more. So I think if we can hopefully take a piece out of this fender, probably this section, something like that, and hopefully still line up these mounting holes and stuff. I think that's what we're going to do. So I can see, I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but I can see that this one's got holes all through here. So I'm going to clean this off and just see if this is all solid, and hopefully we can use this piece. Just because, I mean, this, you know, this wouldn't be hard to make the top, but getting down into here where it, you know, juts in and has that flange inside, it'd just be a little, just be a lot easier if we can use a piece of that. So I'm gonna clean that one off, see what we have, and then we'll start cutting. So there's our headlight area repaired, or this part of it anyway. So that just kind of goes to show you, lots of times this old stuff, while yes, this fender is garbage, it's not repairable, but it kind of saved our butt being able to cut a piece out of it. So, excuse me. So that is that part. I think I've got to put a piece in down here. I've got to put a piece in here like we did on the other one. This one's a little worse, but is what it is. So I'm going to just spend the rest of the day, I think, doing some of the small stuff. And I might even try and get this one outside for sandblasting. It's warmed up to something like, the last time I looked it was minus 18 or something. So, but when the sun's shining, it's not so bad. So yeah, I'll carry on. I'll bring you guys back when it's more interesting, but this is just more of the same, cutting, making little pieces. I'm gonna guess that you'll want this antenna hole filled. They'll just go ahead and fill it. I doubt we're gonna be sticking an antenna out the fender again, so anyway, bring you guys back later. Well, good morning everybody. It's the next day. It's actually kind of late. I wasn't feeling 100% this morning, so I was kind of late getting started, which kind of brings me to a point about being self-employed. It is very much a blessing and a curse. The blessing is that if you're not feeling too hot in the morning, you can, lay on the couch for a couple hours and start late. The curse is that if you're not feeling well in the morning, you can lay on the couch for a couple hours and start late. So I've always been pretty good about keeping regular hours, because I find that's super important running a small business. But anyway, too much information. Who cares? So I figured it has warmed up to a balmy minus 15, which actually with the sunshine isn't bad. You can see it's actually beautiful out, just very cold. But I'm gonna go out and do some sandblasting. So it's actually not bad. I don't mind doing it. It's not the weather, it's just that the lens fogs up constantly, so that's what makes it difficult. But this stuff needs to be done, so it's actually pretty nice out. So I'm gonna get set up, clean up these parts. I already did a light sandblast inside the one fender. Now this one that we've been working on last needs a lot of cleanup. That back door, I had dusted it with the blaster, but the rest of it needs to be cleaned up. So see you guys outside. All right, one side, I'll refill the blaster and I'll do the other side. All right, so back in the shop. Whew, out of the cold. So nothing crazy there, a bunch of sandblasting. Now, no, they are not blasted 100% perfect gray, but here's the thing. Now you can correct me if I'm wrong. I figure by the time, I will sand the inside of those, epoxy primer and undercoat, and they're going to be on a car that is never going to see bad weather again. They are going to be just fine. So, and then I could keep working that until it's absolutely perfect, but it is, to me, absolutely good enough. Sandblasting flat panels. Now you might be looking at that thinking I'm going to warp the panels. I'm not putting out big pressure. It's not like I've got like I got a big compressor, but it's not like a big 60 CFM machine that industrial guys use. If you're doing something like a hood or a tailgate, then no, you don't sandblast that. Something like this, I was dusting over some of the outside, just getting some of the bad spots. This all needs to be body worked anyway, and I was definitely not hitting it hard enough to warp it. Stuff like these, when you've got these big round panels, you know, you'd really have to work this to warp it. Again, you can see where I've just hit a bunch of little spots, just going around hitting low spots, little rust blisters. So these, yeah, you would have a hell of a time warping these too, being rounded metal. And these are gonna need to be completely body worked too, because these have all been dented in the past and repaired. And so I've got a bunch of hammer and dollying to do on them anyway. So that's that out of the way. I'm gonna move back onto the car. I've got to just do a little bit of welding on the ends of the rockers. And then maybe, yeah, we might even start body working these fenders. Actually, I do still have welding to do on this one. I haven't done that spot yet. So a few little bits to do. I would at this point actually epoxy these, the inside for sure, but I'm out of primer right now, so. And I'm in between paydays, so I have to wait for one of my customers to get caught up. But anyway, bring you guys back in a bit. Well, it's the next day again here, everybody. Friday today. So we're moving on to this little bit on the front of our fender. So I was able to salvage a piece out of the old fender like we did for the headlight. So that's just going to make it a little easier than making one, and then we're going to retain that little reinforcement piece for a fastener there. So that's going to be pretty good. So that's going to go right there. So I'm actually going to just, this one's got the screw broken off in it. I'm just going to cut that little piece out so that this is going to fit nicer. And then we'll clamp it and cut for our new piece. So, get that little guy out of our way, just to make more room. This guy is going to live basically right here. And you see with the thickness of the blade, by the time I cut this, I'm going to be able to move this piece in just a hair once we've got the old metal cut out. So that's going to make up for that tiny bit of difference you see in that hole there. All right, there's our old piece, there's a new piece. Clean that up a little bit. See, that is going to fit perfectly right where we want it. Sitting in the fluorescent light, my helmet doesn't want to cooperate. So a lot of guys often ask me about welder settings. Now my machine This is a Miller 135, 110 volt. I have had this welder for 20 years. And I tell you, knock on wood, but after owning this machine, I can't see owning anything but Miller again, personally. Just because this thing is just absolutely bulletproof. It's never, ever caused me a bit of problem. And as you know, I weld a lot, so it gets used. So for this thin sheet metal, you can see I'm on 5 for voltage and 50 for wire speed. That seems to be about a happy spot. I am not a trained welder by any means. I've just kind of learned to weld with all my years in the trade, so I'm not one to give welding tips, because I mean, I can weld, but I don't really know what's the wording for that. I don't really know specifics. I can weld stuff, I can adjust a welder to make it work and to do nice welds, but yeah, I'm definitely not the guy to ask for welding advice by any means. So, just so you guys know. I mean, I know enough to be able to do a good weld, but that is where it ends. And of course, something like this sheet metal, you don't want to do any long beads because you'll just warp the heck out of it. Quick as can be, so lots of small welds, lots of cooling time. So there's our piece welded in. So this kind of welding, not always pretty. As long as you have proper penetration, that's what matters. A little bit on that bottom edge I need to get, and then we'll grind it off. So there we are. That's one more little repair ready for body filler. So pretty straightforward. But just another example of basic metal work. So where are we at? So I've got all of the welding done on the fenders now. I hung the rear door. It's not bad. See, the alignment's bad, but there's a ton of play in those hinge pins. So I'm going to need to order a pin kit for the hinges. I'm going to do the rear door. I may as well do all the doors, but front doors are still welded to the car until it comes off the rotisserie. next step will be body work on these remaining panels. Actually, I'll dig out the hood and get it stripped as well. So, I'm just going to end this video here, guys. We'll just call this a check-in on this job. I think I have next week clear. I might have another job coming in, but it's not confirmed, so I might still be able to work on this again next week. So it's been nice to make some progress on this job again. So I think I'm gonna just, yeah, I'll end this one here. I'm gonna jump onto something else for a little while, and I will bring you guys back when I get back to this one. Thanks for watching. See you then.